Like Resident Evil 4, the original Dead Space is one of the most influential survival horror games ever made. It's one of my favorite survival horror games of the past 2 decades. Bearing that it was also heavily inspired by Resident Evil 4, at least from a mechanic standpoint, it distinguishes itself significantly through its themes. It focuses on the horror of the outer reaches of space and the creatures that may inhabit it. I was apprehensive when EA announced it was remaking the original Dead Space for the modern era, partly due to EA being EA. And these days, putting the term modern era in front of anything is almost akin to a witch's curse. If you're superstitious, that is. I'm pleased to say that the Dead Space remake was mostly spared from that curse, and proves just how timeless the original game was. At the same time, it shows just how creatively bankrupt the gaming industry truly is. Now, I'm sure that sounds a little confusing, but stay tuned, I got you. If you're a fan of the original, you'll be happy to know that the remake is the same in almost every way. From the overall story to the weapons in your arsenal, the upgrades you get, the enemies you encounter, etc. For those new to the series, Dead Space takes place on a derelict ship called the Ishimura. You play as Isaac Clarke, investigating what happened to the crew and searching for your girlfriend, who also went missing with the crew. Things jump off, and you're suddenly fighting the former crew transformed into otherworldly creatures called necromorphs. It's a story loosely inspired by movies like The Thing and Event Horizon.
You know nothing. Hell is only a word. The reality is much, much worse.
There are some changes to the story compared to the original, however. Some big and others more subtle. For example, Isaac's face, outside of the helmet, is much more prominent this time. And he's also more vocal in cutscenes.
Haley, I need you to listen. The Ishimura is overrun with... they're fucking monsters. You didn't hear anything?
His past has also been fleshed out more, including his reason for hating the Church of Unitology. Then there are other more subtle changes to a few characters' backstories, which honestly felt completely unnecessary as they added nothing to the story. So, the story is mostly intact. What about the gameplay? Like the story, the gameplay of the remake is also very much the same as the original. A plus is that there haven't been any unnecessary changes to the gameplay, demonstrating just how timeless the gameplay mechanics were in 2008. Inspired by Resident Evil 4, Dead Space also focuses on third-person gameplay with an over-the-shoulder perspective for shooting and targeting specific weak points, besides the head to kill necromorphs. Also, the diegetic HUD and UI are still here, with all the vital information you need shown on Isaac's suit. Even today, the gameplay still holds up exceptionally well, and noticing your skill improve in taking down necromorphs is addicting on its own. The new Intensity Director ensures that no two playthroughs are ever identical, as it changes what you encounter based on how much you've experienced up to that point, minus the obviously scripted encounters. The weapon arsenal remains untouched, though some, like the contact beam, have seen functional improvements compared to the original. But if you're gonna remake a game, you also want to take advantage of tech that wasn't available at the time. So how does that relate to Dead Space? If there's one thing you can count on with horror games, audio will always be front and center before nearly anything else. The remake is no different, taking advantage of some of the latest in audio tech such as 3D audio. Being trapped on a creepy ship has never felt more isolating. You'll hear whispers from all around you. Necromorphs will taunt you from inside vents, attempting to mislead your ability to sense where they are. The unsettling silence in dark hallways with nothing more than the heavy stomping of Isaac's boots, or the heavy breathing from sprinting too long. A couple of cool new additions to audio. There are times during gameplay when you spot corpses or generally unsettling things, and you'll hear Isaac's heart rate increase and his breathing get heavier. Also, during dialogue exchanges, multiple takes were recorded, and depending on Isaac's health condition, his temperament during responses will be different. For example, if you're in the green, a normal response. And you'll hear more pained and groan responses if you're in the red or hurt.
Isaac, what's happening down there?
Johnson's gone. And Kellyan too. The singularity core overloaded.
Isaac, what's happening down there?
Johnson's gone. The Kellyan too. The singularity core overloaded.
The game uses the latest version of EA's Frostbite engine, and it's a looker from a visual standpoint, assuming you like dark, damp, rusted-looking environments, as that is the Ishimura most of the time. This comes at a cost, however, especially on PC where performance and optimization are less than stellar, even a full year after its release. The Dead Space Remake does a fantastic job of using modern technology to make an already great game shine even more than it did in 2008. The developers tried to stay true to the original while fleshing out details and added more context where there wasn't back then. Hell, even one of the original developers admitted this in a recent interview. While not all changes were great or even necessary, they weren't enough to bring down what makes Dead Space an excellent survival horror experience to begin with. I mentioned earlier that while the game is fantastic, it simultaneously showcases how creatively bankrupt the industry is, proving that the modern industry has forgotten what it is about video games that gamers love in the first place. And now we're constantly reaching back into the time machine where a video game being a video game was a good thing, and then reselling it. But this is a discussion I'll save for another video, if that's something people want to see, of course. The Dead Space remake has proven itself and has become one of my favorite games of 2023.